In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across velvet, a young man named Orion found himself in a situation he could never have imagined. A mechanic by trade and an adventurer at heart, Orion had always dreamed of exploring the cosmos. What he hadn't expected was to be standing in the grand hall of an alien palace, face to face with the regal and imposing figure of Queen Xylora, ruler of the Velari Empire. Orion's journey had begun weeks earlier when his rickety old spaceship, the Starling, malfunctioned near a remote asteroid belt. Stranded and running low on supplies, he managed to send out a distress signal before his power reserves dwindled. To his astonishment, help arrived. Not from humans but from a sleek, shimmering vessel bearing the insignia of the Velari. The aliens who rescued him were tall, graceful beings with skin that shimmered like opals and eyes that glowed faintly in hues of violet and gold. They welcomed him aboard their ship with curiosity rather than hostility, and though they spoke little English, their gestures conveyed kindness. After days of travel through hyperspace, Orion found himself deposited onto the surface of Virilis Prime, the capital planet of the Velari Empire. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a world bathed in perpetual twilight, its skies streaked with ribbons of auroras. Towering spires made of crystalline material rose into the heavens, reflecting light in dazzling patterns. The air hummed with energy, and everywhere Orion looked, there were signs of advanced technology seamlessly integrated with nature. He was brought to the palace, a structure so magnificent it seemed to defy physics. Its walls pulsed gently as if alive, and intricate carvings adorned every surface, depicting scenes of battles won and alliances forged. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew warmer, filled with the scent of exotic flowers whose petals floated lazily around the room. It was here that Orion first encountered Queen Xylora. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her presence commanding yet oddly comforting. Her flowing robes shimmered with colors that changed depending on how the light hit them, and her crown, a delicate lattice of gemstones, rested atop her head like a halo. When she extended her hand toward him, Orion hesitated for only a moment before taking it. Her touch was cool but not unpleasant, and when she spoke, her voice resonated deep within his chest. "Please marry my daughters, human," she said simply, her glowing eyes locking onto his. Orion blinked, certain he must have misheard. "I'm sorry. What?" The queen tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "You are brave, resourceful, and kind-hearted. These qualities are rare among your kind, or so I am told. My daughters need such a partner, one who can unite our people and bring balance to the empire." Before Orion could respond, two figures entered the chamber. Identical twins, both radiating an ethereal beauty that left him momentarily speechless. One wore a gown of deep sapphire, while the other donned one of emerald green. Their names were introduced as Lysara and Navara, respectively. Both regarded him with interest, though Lysara's gaze carried a hint of mischief, while Navara's was more reserved. "This is preposterous," Orion finally managed to stammer, pulling his hand away from the queen's grasp. "I don't even know you, or them. Marriage? That's insane." Queen Xylora didn't appear offended. Instead, she smiled indulgently, as though she'd expected this reaction. "You misunderstand, Orion. This is not merely about marriage. It is about destiny. You have been chosen by fate itself to play a pivotal role in the future of the Velari people. Refuse now, and you may never leave this place." Orion's mind raced. Was this some elaborate prank? A test of loyalty? Or perhaps something far more sinister? Whatever it was, he knew one thing for sure. Saying no wouldn't get him off Virilis Prime anytime soon. As the days passed, Orion struggled to make sense of his new reality. The palace staff treated him with a mix of reverence and suspicion, clearly unsure what to make of the human thrust into their midst. Meals were served in ornate dining halls, where food unlike anything he'd ever tasted appeared before him on golden platters. Some dishes were delicious, others bizarre, and a few downright alarming. He once bit into what he thought was fruit only to discover it squirmed slightly in his mouth. After choking it down, and vowing never to eat anything moving again, he decided sticking to beverages might be safer. Lysara and Navara proved to be polar opposites in personality, which made spending time with them both delightful and exhausting. Lysara was vivacious and playful, often teasing Orion with cryptic comments about his supposed destiny. She dragged him through gardens filled with bioluminescent flora, challenged him to games he didn't understand, and laughed at his clumsy attempts to keep up. Navara, on the other hand, was quieter and more introspective. She preferred long walks under the starlit skies, sharing stories of her people's history and occasionally surprising him with profound insights about humanity. Despite their differences, both sisters shared a fierce loyalty to their mother and a palpable concern for the future of their empire. Through snippets of conversation, Orion learned that the Velari were facing internal strife. Factions within the ruling council sought to undermine Queen Xylora's authority, citing her unconventional methods and growing attachment to Earth culture as reasons for dissent. The idea of marrying a human prince consort was, apparently, the final straw for many traditionalists. One evening, after yet another surreal day, Orion found himself alone with Lysara in a secluded courtyard. The air was cool, and the soft glow of floating lanterns cast dappled shadows across the ground. For once, Lysara seemed uncharacteristically serious. "Do you think we're asking too much of you?" she asked suddenly, her luminous eyes searching his face. Orion sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Honestly, yes. But it's not just about me. Your people, they seem divided. Why do they need someone like me to fix things?" Lysara leaned back against a marble bench, her expression thoughtful. "Because change is hard. Our society has thrived on tradition for centuries, but the galaxy is evolving. We need someone who sees the world differently, someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. Someone like you." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with implication. Before Orion could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. Guards rushed past, shouting orders in their melodic language. Moments later, a servant approached, bowing deeply. "Forgive the intrusion, honored guest," the servant said, addressing Orion. "But there has been an attack on the eastern quadrant of the palace. You are requested to join the royal family immediately." Heart-pounding, Orion followed the servant back inside. The once tranquil halls were now alive with urgency. Queen Xylora awaited him in the throne room, her calm demeanor masking the tension in the air. Beside her stood Navara, her hands clasped tightly together. "What happened?" Orion asked, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "A rebel faction," the queen replied grimly. "They seek to destabilize the empire and prevent any alliance with Earth. You, Orion, have become a symbol of that alliance, and thus, a target." Before Orion could process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the palace. The rebels had breached the inner sanctum, and chaos descended. Explosions rocked the corridors, sending shockwaves through the crystalline walls. Shards of glass-like material rained down, forcing Orion, Queen Xylora, and Navara to take cover behind a massive stone pillar. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning circuits. Orion's heart thudded wildly in his chest as he peered around the edge of the pillar, spotting armed figures clad in black armor advancing with deadly precision. "Stay close," Queen Xylora commanded, her voice firm despite the chaos. In her hand, she held a sleek device that emitted a faint hum. With a flick of her wrist, she activated a shimmering energy shield around them, deflecting incoming laser fire. The rebels shouted in frustration, their weapons useless against the barrier. Navara gripped Orion's arm tightly, her wide eyes reflecting fear and determination. "We need to reach the control center," she said urgently. "If they disable the palace defenses, they'll gain access to the entire network." Orion nodded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Lead the way." The trio moved swiftly, darting between cover as the shield flickered intermittently. Queen Xylora's device crackled with strain, its power waning under the relentless assault. Just as they reached a narrow passageway leading to the control center, the shield collapsed entirely. A bolt of energy grazed Orion's shoulder, searing through his jacket and leaving a painful burn. He gritted his teeth but pushed forward, unwilling to slow them down. Inside the control center, a holographic display dominated the room, showing real-time updates of the battle raging outside. Lysara was already there, frantically working at a console alongside a team of technicians. Her face lit up briefly when she saw them enter, but her relief quickly turned to panic as more rebels breached the door. "Activate the failsafe," Queen Xylora ordered, throwing herself into the fray. She grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and fired with surprising accuracy, holding off the attackers long enough for Lysara to input the final command. The room trembled as the failsafe engaged, locking down all critical systems and trapping the rebels in localized containment fields. Cheers erupted from the technicians, but Orion barely registered them. His focus was on Lysara, who slumped against the console, clutching her side where a stray shot had grazed her. "I'm fine," she insisted weakly, waving off Navarra's concerned ministrations. "Just a scratch." Orion knelt beside her, examining the wound. "This doesn't look like just a scratch," he muttered, tearing off part of his sleeve to staunch the bleeding. "We need to get you to medical care." Lysara grinned despite the pain. "Always the hero, aren't you?" Their moment was interrupted by Queen Xylora, who approached with a mixture of relief and resolve etched on her face. "The immediate threat has been neutralized, but this is far from over. The rebels will regroup, and next time, they may not fail." Orion stood, helping Lysara to her feet. "Then we prepare. Whatever it takes, I'm in." The Queen studied him for a long moment, then nodded approvingly. "Very well. But remember, Orion, the path ahead will demand more than bravery. It will require sacrifice." Days turned into weeks, and Orion found himself immersed in preparations for what felt like an inevitable war. Under Queen Xylora's guidance, he trained rigorously alongside the palace guards, learning combat techniques and strategies tailored to the unique physiology of the Velari. At first, his clumsiness earned him more than a few amused smirks from the soldiers, but his determination quickly won their respect. By the end of each session, he was drenched in sweat and covered in bruises, but also grinning, exhilarated by the progress he was making. Meanwhile, Lysara and Navarra became constant companions, each contributing to Orion's education in different ways. Lysara took charge of teaching him about the Velari political landscape, using her sharp wit and encyclopedic knowledge to explain the complex web of alliances and rivalries within the empire. She often did so over meals, turning even the most mundane discussions into lively debates punctuated by laughter. Navarra, on the other hand, focused on diplomacy, schooling Orion in the art of negotiation and persuasion. Her calm demeanor and keen insight proved invaluable as he navigated the intricacies of interstellar politics. Amidst the whirlwind of training and lessons, Orion couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was unfolding. The bond he shared with the twins grew stronger with each passing day, transcending mere friendship. Lysara's playful teasing began to carry undertones of genuine affection, while Navarra's quiet support hinted at emotions she struggled to articulate. Orion found himself torn between admiration for both sisters, unsure how, or if, he should act on these feelings. One evening, during a rare moment of solitude, Orion wandered into the palace's vast library. The room was cavernous, its shelves stretching impossibly high and filled with ancient scrolls and digital tablets. As he browsed aimlessly, he stumbled upon a section dedicated to Earth's history and culture. Among the artifacts was a collection of human poetry, translated into the Velari language. Intrigued, he picked up a tablet and began reading aloud, stumbling over unfamiliar words but finding comfort in the familiar themes of love, loss, and longing. Unbeknownst to him, Lysara had followed him into the library. She watched silently from the shadows, her lips curving into a soft smile as Orion recited lines from a Shakespearean sonnet. When he finally noticed her presence, he flushed with embarrassment. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Didn't mean to disturb anyone." "You didn't," Lysara replied, stepping closer. "It's beautiful. Your people have such depth." Orion chuckled nervously. "Not all of us. Trust me, some humans are pretty shallow." Lysara tilted her head, studying him intently. "And you? Are you shallow, Orion?" Her question caught him off guard, and for a moment, he didn't know how to respond. I hope not," he said finally. "But sometimes, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing here. If I'm good enough for, well, everything." Lysara placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You're better than you give yourself credit for. And whether you realize it or not, you've already changed us, for the better." Before Orion could reply, Navarra entered the library, her expression troubled. "Mother requests our presence," she announced. "Another attack has been reported, this time on the outer colonies." Orion's heart sank. No matter how much he tried to adapt, the shadow of conflict loomed large, threatening to consume everything he'd come to care about. Yet, as he followed the sisters back to the throne room, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, he truly was meant to be here, to fight, to learn, and maybe even to love. The meeting in the throne room was tense, the air crackling with urgency. Holographic maps floated above the table, displaying the locations of recent attacks on the outer colonies. Each red dot represented devastation, burned villages, destroyed infrastructure, and countless lives lost. Queen Xylora paced back and forth, her usually serene expression replaced by one of steely resolve. "We cannot allow this aggression to continue unchecked," she declared, her voice cutting through the murmurs of advisors and generals. "The rebels must be stopped, and they must understand that harming our people will not go unpunished." Orion stood at the edge of the group, feeling both out of place and strangely integral. He listened intently as plans were discussed, strategic deployments, diplomatic negotiations, and covert operations designed to root out the rebellion's leaders. Yet, something gnawed at him. The rebels weren't acting without reason. Their anger stemmed from fears about cultural erosion and loss of autonomy. Could there be another way? Later that night, unable to sleep, Orion wandered the palace halls until he found himself outside the royal garden. The scent of blooming flowers mingled with the cool night air, offering a brief respite from the turmoil within. There, seated on a bench beneath a canopy of glowing vines, was Navara. Her gaze was distant, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. "Can't sleep either?" Orion asked softly, approaching cautiously. Navara glanced up, startled but not displeased by his presence. "No," she admitted. "Too much to think about." They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the palace fading into the background. Finally, Orion spoke. "Do you think there's a chance to talk to the rebels? To find common ground instead of fighting?" Navara sighed, her fingers tracing patterns on the bench. "It's complicated. Many of them see compromise as weakness. But, I agree with you. Violence only breeds more violence." Her words resonated deeply with Orion. "Maybe we could try reaching out. Show them we're willing to listen." Navara considered this, her expression thoughtful. "It would be risky. Mother might not approve. But if it works..." Orion trailed off, the possibilities swirling in his mind. The next morning, Orion presented his idea to Queen Xylora. To his surprise, she didn't dismiss it outright. Instead, she listened carefully, weighing the potential risks and rewards. After a lengthy discussion, she agreed to let Orion attempt a diplomatic mission, albeit with strict conditions and ample protection. Accompanied by a small contingent of guards, Orion set out for the rebel stronghold, located in the rugged mountains beyond the capital. The journey was arduous, the terrain unforgiving, but Orion pressed on, driven by a fragile hope. When they finally arrived, the rebels greeted them with suspicion, their weapons trained on the intruders. Orion stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm here to talk," he called out, his voice steady despite the danger. "To understand why you're doing this." For a moment, no one moved. Then, a figure emerged from the crowd, a tall, scarred warrior with piercing eyes. "And why should we trust you, human?" he demanded. "Because I want to help," Orion replied earnestly. "Not just the Velari, but everyone caught in this conflict." The warrior studied him for a long moment before nodding curtly. "Speak, then. But choose your words wisely." Hours passed as Orion engaged in heated discussions with the rebel leaders, laying bare the fears and aspirations of both sides. It wasn't easy. Tempers flared, accusations flew, and more than once, it seemed the fragile truce might shatter entirely. Yet, slowly, painfully, progress was made. Compromises were proposed, tentative agreements reached. By the time Orion returned to the palace, exhausted but hopeful, he found Lysara waiting for him. Her eyes sparkled with pride as she embraced him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it. But as Orion looked around at the weary faces of those who had fought so hard, he knew the road ahead remained fraught with challenges. Peace was a fragile thing, easily broken. And somewhere, deep inside, he wondered if he was truly ready to bear the weight of such responsibility. The fragile peace brokered by Orion began to take root, but like a sapling in stormy weather, it required constant care. Over the following weeks, delegations from both sides convened in neutral zones to hammer out details of the truce. Queen Xylora played her part with grace and authority, ensuring that concessions were fair while maintaining the integrity of the Velari Empire. Yet, tensions simmered beneath the surface, and whispers of dissent echoed through the halls of power. Orion found himself caught between two worlds, literally and figuratively. On one hand, he was celebrated as a hero among the Velari for his role in averting further bloodshed. Statues were erected in his honor, songs sung about his bravery, and feasts held in his name. On the other hand, some factions within the empire viewed him with suspicion, seeing him as an outsider who had meddled where he didn't belong. Even worse, certain rebel groups refused to acknowledge the ceasefire, continuing sporadic attacks on remote outposts. One morning, as Orion strolled through the palace gardens with Lysara, she turned to him with a mischievous grin. "You know," she said, twirling a strand of her shimmering hair, "you're becoming quite the celebrity around here. People are starting to call you the Human Prince." "Great," Orion groaned, rolling his eyes. "Just what I always wanted, to be famous for something I'm not even sure I did right." Lysara laughed, her voice musical. "Oh, come now. You saved countless lives. That's no small feat," her tone softened. "But fame has its price. Be careful, Orion. Not everyone is happy about your newfound status." Her warning lingered in his mind later that day when he encountered a group of young Velari nobles during a diplomatic gathering. They greeted him politely at first, their glowing eyes filled with curiosity. But as the conversation progressed, their questions grew pointed, almost accusatory. "How does a human presume to understand our ways?" one asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Our culture, our traditions, they're centuries old. What makes you think you can simply step in and fix everything?" Orion clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to snap back. Instead, he took a deep breath and replied calmly, "I don't claim to understand everything about your people. But I do know what it's like to want a better future. If we work together, maybe we can build something stronger than either side could alone." The noble sneered but said nothing more, leaving Orion unsettled. It was clear that not everyone shared Lysara's optimism or Navarra's faith in diplomacy. Some saw him as a threat, a symbol of change they weren't ready to accept. As if to underscore this tension, news arrived of another attack. This time, it wasn't just rebels. A mysterious third party had entered the fray. Ships bearing unfamiliar markings descended upon a border colony, wreaking havoc before vanishing into the void. The victims spoke of advanced weaponry and ruthless efficiency, unlike anything seen before. Panic rippled through the empire as rumors spread of an alien invasion. Queen Xylora called an emergency council meeting, her expression grim. Holographic projections displayed grainy footage of the unknown attackers, their sleek vessels slicing through space like blades. Orion leaned forward, studying the images intently. Something about them felt familiar. He couldn't place it, but the design triggered a memory buried deep in his subconscious. "We must act swiftly," the Queen declared, her voice firm. "These invaders pose a greater danger than the rebels ever did. We cannot afford to divide our forces any longer." Orion raised his hand hesitantly. "Your Majesty, may I speak?" The Queen nodded, and all eyes turned to him. "I think these ships might be connected to Earth," he said slowly. Murmurs erupted around the room, but Orion pressed on. "Before I came here, there were rumors of secret experiments, advanced technology being developed without oversight. Someone might have sold those designs to hostile parties." Navarra gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. "You mean humans are behind this?" Orion shook his head. "I don't know for sure. But if it's true, then Earth itself could be in danger too. We need to investigate." The council debated fiercely, but ultimately, Queen Xylora agreed to send a reconnaissance team to track down the source of the attacks. Orion volunteered immediately, despite protests from both Lysara and Navara. "You've done enough," Lysara argued later that night, pacing anxiously in Orion's quarters. "Let someone else handle this. And let whoever's doing this destroy innocent lives?" Orion countered, his voice rising. "I can't stand by and do nothing." Navara, seated quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. "He's right, sister. This isn't just about us anymore. If Earth is involved, then humanity's fate is tied to ours. We have to help him." Lysara stopped pacing, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Fine. But promise me you'll come back alive." Orion smiled wryly. "I'll do my best." The mission took them far beyond Virilis Prime, into uncharted regions of space. The Starling, repaired and upgraded with Velari tech, served as their vessel, piloted by a grizzled veteran named Commander Valen. Alongside Orion were Lysara, Navara, and a small squad of elite guards. Despite the gravity of their task, moments of levity punctuated the journey. Lysara kept spirits high with her endless stream of jokes, while Navara provided quiet reassurance whenever doubts crept in. Their first clue came when they intercepted a transmission from one of the mysterious ships. The language was garbled, but Orion recognized fragments of English mixed with strange distortions. His heart sank. Whoever these attackers were, they had ties to Earth, and possibly to shadowy organizations operating outside the law. Tracking the signal led them to a derelict space station orbiting a dying star. Its metallic hull was pockmarked with scars from past battles, and eerie silence greeted them as they docked. Inside, the air was stale, the corridors dimly lit by flickering panels. As they explored deeper, they discovered evidence of human involvement. Discarded uniforms bearing Earth insignias, crates stamped with corporate logos, and logs detailing unethical experiments conducted in secret. "This is bad," Orion muttered, scanning a datapad. "Really bad." Suddenly, alarms blared, and the station shuddered violently. A voice boomed over the intercom, cold and mechanical. "Intruders detected. Initiating containment protocol." Doors slammed shut, trapping them in a narrow corridor. Red lights flashed overhead as robotic drones descended from hidden alcoves, weapons trained on the group. Lysara cursed under her breath, drawing her own weapon, while Navara activated a portable shield generator. "Any bright ideas?" Lysara quipped, firing a bolt of energy that disabled one of the drones. Orion's mind raced. "There's a maintenance hatch nearby. If we can reach it, we might be able to disable the system manually." "No time like the present," Navara said dryly, tossing him a toolkit. With precise teamwork, they fought their way to the hatch, dodging laser fire and narrowly avoiding capture. Once inside, Orion worked furiously to override the station's defenses, his fingers flying over the controls. Sweat dripped down his brow as countdown timers ticked closer to 0. "Got it!" he exclaimed triumphantly as the alarm ceased and the doors slid open. But their relief was short-lived. Emerging from the shadows was a figure clad in black armor, their face obscured by a mask. In their hand, they held a device pulsing with ominous energy. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure rasped, raising the device. "Now you'll see why." A blinding flash engulfed the room, and Orion felt himself falling, tumbling through darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer aboard the station, but somewhere else entirely. Somewhere cold, desolate, and utterly alien. And standing before him was someone, or something, he never expected to see again. When Orion regained his senses, he found himself in a barren, icy landscape. The air was thin and biting, and the sky above was a swirling mass of gray clouds. Before him stood the armored figure who had confronted them on the station, but as they removed their helmet, Orion's jaw dropped in disbelief. It was Captain Rhea Solon, a former ally from Earth whom he hadn't seen in years. Once a decorated officer in the United Galactic Fleet, she had vanished under mysterious circumstances after being accused of treason. Rumors suggested she had gone rogue, but Orion never believed them, until now. "Rhea," Orion stammered, struggling to his feet. "What are you doing here? Why are you attacking innocent people?" Rhea's expression hardened, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and resolve. "Innocent? You have no idea what's at stake, Orion. The Velari Empire isn't some benevolent force. It's a threat. Their technology could destabilize entire star systems if it falls into the wrong hands. That's not true. Lysara interjected, stepping forward despite the frost clinging to her shimmering gown. We're trying to protect our people, not conquer others. Rhea glanced at her briefly before focusing back on Orion. And yet, they've dragged you into this mess. Tell me, how many lives have been lost because of your meddling? Orion clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. This isn't about conquest or power, it's about survival. The rebels, the attacks, even you. All of it stems from fear and misunderstanding. But we can fix this, Rhea. Together. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Then Rhea sighed, lowering her weapon slightly. I didn't want it to come to this, she admitted softly. But I couldn't let them exploit Earth's secrets without consequences. Nivara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Captain Solon, we understand your concerns. But violence only perpetuates more violence. If you stand down, we can work toward a solution that benefits everyone. Rhea hesitated, her gaze flickering between Orion, Lysara, and Nivara. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if I find out you're lying to me. You won't, Orion assured her, extending a hand. After a beat, Rhea shook it, sealing an uneasy truce. With Rhea's cooperation, the group uncovered the full scope of the conspiracy. A rogue faction within Earth's corporate elite had been selling advanced weaponry to various alien groups, hoping to destabilize rival powers, including the Velari Empire. By exposing the truth and dismantling the operation, Orion and his companions managed to broker a lasting peace treaty between Earth, the Velari, and other affected species. Months later, life on Virilis Prime had transformed. The once divided empire now thrived under Queen Xylora's wise leadership, bolstered by alliances forged through trust and mutual respect. Orion had earned his place among the Velari, no longer viewed as an outsider but as a cherished member of the royal family. Lysara and Nivara, having grown even closer to Orion during their shared trials, made a joint decision that surprised everyone, including themselves. Rather than choosing one sister over the other, Orion proposed a union unlike any in Velari history, a triad marriage. To his relief, Queen Xylora approved wholeheartedly, citing ancient traditions that celebrated unity in all its forms. Their wedding ceremony was a spectacle of joy and harmony, attended by dignitaries from across the galaxy. As Orion stood beside Lysara and Nivara beneath a canopy of floating lanterns, he felt a profound sense of belonging, a feeling he'd spent his entire life searching for. Years passed, and the palace halls rang with laughter once more, not just from the royal couple, but from their growing family. Lysara gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, who inherited her playful spirit and radiant smile. Nivara followed soon after with a son, whose quiet wisdom mirrored her own. Together, they raised their children in a world where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Orion often found himself gazing at the stars from the palace balcony, reflecting on how far he'd come. From a stranded mechanic to a prince of an alien empire, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Yet, surrounded by love and purpose, he knew he'd found exactly where he belonged. As Queen Xylora approached one evening, her presence as regal as ever, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've done well, Orion," she said warmly. "Not just for my daughters, but for our people. For the galaxy." Orion smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for everything." The Queen chuckled softly. "Call me Mother. It's about time." And so, in a realm where destiny intertwined with choice, Orion, Lysara, and Nivara built a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. Amidst the twinkling constellations of the cosmos, their story became a legend, a tale of courage, love, and the unbreakable bonds that unite us all.